What if the reason growth isn't sticking for you has nothing to do with how hard you're trying? I mean, information is so important and inspiration's important, but on their own, neither one of them is going to create lasting change. That's why growth can feel like such an illusion, like it's working for everybody else, just not you. You listen to a podcast and it all makes sense. You watch something that moves you, and for a while you feel it. You read a book and it hands you tools that actually seem quite useful. You even try them, but none of it seems to last. It's because the patterns that run underneath are never touched. Every time you hope this time is going to be different, then that trigger hits. Then the old habits, they return. The same arguments, the same fears, the same shutdown, that same 2 a.m. replay in your head. Those old patterns, they creep back in and you start to wonder, maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm broken. Maybe there's no hope for me. I just don't think that's true. I don't think it's because you don't care. I don't think it's because you're not trying hard enough. I don't think it's coming from a lack of effort. And I don't believe it's about a lack of information. We have more information than ever. I think the problem is just so much simpler. Most people are trying to change the symptoms without ever understanding the patterns that created them. Why would someone who desperately wants healthy relationships keep finding themselves in unhealthy ones? Why does someone who genuinely values honesty and openness get defensive the moment they feel criticized? Why does someone who promises themselves that they're finally going to set boundaries, they still say yes when everything inside them wants to say no? I don't think it's because we're weak, and I don't think it's because we're broken. I think it's because our patterns have become automatic. They're unconscious. They get built right into us. Every experience we have leaves an imprint. Some experiences, they teach us not to trust. Others teach us to protect ourselves. Some teach us to avoid any form of emotional pain. Some teach us to seek approval. Some teach us that we need to be in control. And over time, those lessons become habits. And then those habits become patterns. And eventually, those patterns begin making decisions for us before we're even aware we've made them. That's why our responses don't really feel like choices. They just feel like, well, this is who I am. I've always been this way. That's just my personality. But what if it isn't? What if the things you've accepted about your personality are not your personality at all? What if they're patterns? Patterns that once protected you, but you've simply never realized you don't need them anymore. Because if that's what's really happening, then lasting change isn't about trying harder. It's about seeing those patterns clearly, understanding why they developed, and realizing you don't have to keep living from them. I don't think you're broken. You don't need someone else to fix you. You need to understand yourself. Because once you can see your patterns, you realize there's something you learned. They're not someone you are. And when you stop confusing your patterns with your identity, something remarkable happens. You begin to see possibilities where you used to see limitations. You begin responding with intention where you once only reacted. And you begin making choices as the person you truly want to become. That's why I created Discover You. First, there's insight. It helps you recognize the patterns that have been shaping your life. Then comes alignment. It helps you intentionally practice new ways of thinking, responding, and living. And then finally, growth helps you reinforce those new patterns until they become your new normal. Because real change doesn't happen the day you understand yourself. It happens when the person you want to become begins showing up in the choices you make every day. So if you've been working on yourself for years, if you felt like you've made progress, only to find yourself back in the same place, maybe the problem was never your effort. Maybe no one ever showed you what was happening underneath it all. Because once you understand your patterns, you'll realize your future does not have to look like your past.